So I've gone one season now into the flip saver. I took all of the English pyramid and flipped it upside down. So all the Premier League teams are now down in National League North and South. All the National League North and South teams are up in the Premier League or the Championship. They're split between the two because of the numbers. But the Championship teams have also joined the Premier League teams down in National League North and South. All the other divisions in between also mixed up. So we're going to have a look at now what's happened after one season, see what happened to those teams throughout the divisions. So we'll start at the bottom here, of course, with the ex-Premier League teams. And as you can see, Man City, Liverpool and Man United are the three teams who've done well this... Oh, actually, sorry. Man City and Liverpool got promoted. Only two teams get promoted out of the National League North. Man United did win the Champions League, so they keep European football, but they're going to still be in the National League North next season. Peterborough is the team at the bottom, a bit unlucky. They're in a division there with some very strong Premier League teams: Leeds, Leicester, Everton, Newcastle, Man United, Liverpool. I mean, Newcastle, this is millions of pounds Newcastle. If you look at some of the transfers they made, you can see, of course, they've still got a bit of money to spend, and they're not really finding themselves having to sell players. You'll see Liverpool barely sold anyone. Man City have only sold Liam Delap, but it was to Newcastle, also in the division. Man United have not really bought or sold anyone. So they're not splashing out loads of cash, but they're also not struggling and having to sell off players in a fire sale just yet either. Man United and Man City are still sat on about £2 billion, so they're not. It's not like they're going to be in trouble soon. They can afford to play their players for a little bit. So Peterborough will have to keep an eye on as well, because they will be going out of the Football League system. So we'll see if they make it back in a couple of seasons' time. See if they eventually get the chance to come back into these National League, or if it's the game is going to chuck in some random non-league teams. This is the playoffs in the National League, by the way. Leicester and Newcastle beating out Everton and Leeds, Liverpool beating out Leicester, Man United beating out Newcastle, Liverpool beating out Man United for that final playoff spot to go up to the National League Conference. And here is the National League South. You can see Chelsea went up on 90 points. Arsenal, unluckily, 84 points, did not get promoted because, of course, they would have been in the playoffs as well. QPR all the way down to the bottom there, just 26 points, getting relegated. Interestingly, Chelsea have decided to move on a couple of players. Ross Barkley went to Newcastle, Malang Sarr went to Atalanta, Thiago Silva left for Milan after just a season and a bit. They also brought in Johnny Evans, still going. They brought him in from Leicester, 34 years old, now a Chelsea player. And this is how the playoffs went in the National League South. West Ham, Aston Villa going through the first round, West Ham and Spurs in the second round, and Tottenham beating out West Ham in the final, so they will also find themselves next season in the Conference League. In terms of transfers, the biggest transfer out was Harry Kane, who left. He's still going to be playing continental football. He has gone to PSG for 65 million. Ross Barkley and Joe Rodon both left Chelsea and Spurs respectively to go to Newcastle, and Malang Sarr has gone to Atalanta from Chelsea. But other than that, most of the transfers are in and around the division. In the National League North as well, you can see Newcastle hoovering up players. They bought Diego Llorente from Leeds. At the other end of the pyramid now, in the Premier League, you can see Curzon Ashton won their first ever Premier League, and they have absolutely ridiculous finances now. I can show you through the editor. They now have £100 million, which is a lot. They have a transfer budget of around 60 million. So they're going to have a bit to spend next season on players. Of course, their reputation isn't going to be quite there for them to draw in those big players, but it's going to be a lot of money for them to slowly build up their reputation, build a stadium, improve their club. But you can see, for example, Curzon Ashton, these are the team that won the Premier League. A lot of the players they bought in are all on frees, and they didn't really sell that many players either. So they haven't really spent that money that they've got. We'll have a look next season, see if they start to chuck some of that money at the players, at the division, and see if they can sort of turn themselves into a powerhouse.
We made so much money, we had to keep an apartment just to keep the cash.
Next season, of course, they're also going to have Champions League football, so we're going to see how they get on in that. The other teams to get Champions League football were Alfreton and Hemel Hempstead on 71 points and 70 in the Premier League. Blyth and Bradford got Europa League. Blyth would have got Champions League were it not for Man United. We'll come back to that very shortly. And relegated at the bottom, Farsley, Welling and Braintree. Farsley just missing out on goal difference. I've got a little bit more of a deeper look at some of these over on TikTok. You can come and request clubs over there as well. I'll get to as many as I can. Leamington asked me how they were doing. Welling asked me how they're doing as well. So come have a look at those over on the TikTok channel. A quick browse through the other divisions. So Weymouth were the champions in the Championship. That means they're going to go into the Premier League, and they're probably as strong, if not stronger, than a lot of the Premier League teams already. So that's going to be pretty good for them. They might not have had that extra year of finances that the Premier League teams have had, but they're going to do pretty well. Maidstone, Darlington as well, both promoted to the Premier League. Darlington through the playoffs, of course. And relegated Dulwich Slough and Chelmsford, they're going to struggle because they're going to start facing now against National League Conference teams and the League 2 teams and some of the League 1 teams that are coming up into those divisions. So they've got to really solidify themselves quickly or they could find themselves in freefall. In League 1, Sutton and Grimsby went up. Notts County also promoted via the playoffs. Maidenhead, Eastleigh, Altrincham and Dover all relegated to League 2. League 2 is pretty similar to League 2 in real life. There's a lot of similar teams in here. Northampton, Rochdale, Mansfield and Stevenage are the 4 teams going up. Colchester and Oldham will find themselves now in the National League Conference and they're going to be up against some former Championship and Premier League teams. So we'll have to see how Colchester and Oldham gets on next season. And in the Vanarama National League, this is mostly made up of what was League 1 teams. You can see Sunderland and Rotherham are promoted. There's a few teams maybe which you expect to do a bit better that are struggling. Portsmouth all the way down there in 17th, for example. But the relegated teams are Cheltenham, Wimbledon and Doncaster, and they're going to find themselves in the National League North and National League South. It balances out a little bit because of the numbers to do with the leagues. National League South has a team less this season or something, but so they'll be dropping down and they're probably going to struggle a little bit in those divisions against those Premier League and top Championship teams. It's also a division you're going to find Chelsea, Man City, Spurs and Liverpool in next season. This is the FA Cup, and of course those Premier League teams, some of them now had to enter via the second qualifying round. So you see Chelsea here had to go via Dorchester, then Poole. They came up against Brentford, Brentford getting knocked out very early there. Liverpool had to play Stalebridge and Morpeth, and then they got knocked out by Wolves. And of course in the third round, those former National League North and National League South teams enter into the competition and they get a couple of easy fixtures. So Guiseley versus Tunbridge. Guiseley are going to get through that. They're going to face Chelsea in the next round. Of course they get beaten by Chelsea, but by the time we reach the quarterfinal, it's pretty much all Premier League teams or former Premier League teams. You can see all in the Vanarama League North or South. Man City, Leeds, Spurs and Everton. Of course, going on to win it, Man City beat Everton 4-0 in the final. That does of course get them a European spot. Now the Carabao Cup's a bit more interesting because the Carabao Cup does not feature teams in the Vanarama National League South, North or Conference. So this is only League 2 teams and above now. It might as well be the Johnston's Paint Trophy or wherever it's called now. I don't know what it's called now. Papa John's Trophy, Papa John's.
He has no pizza experience.
So going through this here, by the time we get to the quarterfinal, you can see actually 2 of the Premier League teams are still in it. So Hemel Hempstead and Hungerford. Hungerford have got into the semi-finals, as have Hemel Hempstead. But they both get knocked out. Rochdale and Forest Green, both League 2 teams, so lower down in the pyramid. We ended up with a final of 2 League 2 teams, Rochdale going on to win. And that of course gets Rochdale also a European spot next season. And interestingly, they also got promoted, so they're going to be in League 1. They've got a spot in Europe. I can imagine Rochdale could be one of the early risers up to the Premier League. If they can stay ahead of the pack of Spurs, Liverpool, Man City chasing them, and they can keep getting promotions, we could see Rochdale establish themselves pretty quickly in the Premier League. The team that qualified for the Europa Conference League last season was Spurs. They made it all the way to the quarterfinal before being knocked out by Trabzonspor from Turkey. So Spurs do not get their European place back for next season. They're going to have to wait now all the way until they're back up in the Premier League. Unless they can win a cup or something, they're going to be a long way away from European football. In the Europa League, Chelsea and Leicester both made it all the way to the final, despite playing in those lower divisions. They're obviously still playing against quality opposition week in, week out, but they managed to find themselves all the way in the final, Chelsea winning, and they have also secured themselves actually a spot in the Champions League next season. So there will still be Chelsea in the Champions League next season. And in the Champions League, Man United, Man City and Liverpool got through to the quarterfinals. Man United went on to win the competition, so Man United have also qualified for next season's Champions League. So there's a few teams that made it into next season's Champions League. Chelsea were in the group stages and they got knocked down to Europa League, which you've just seen they went on to win. So Man United and Chelsea are going to be in Europe next year, Man City are going to be in Europe next year, and Rochdale are going to be in Europe next year. So we'll see how those guys get along alongside those qualifiers from the Premier League. So that's it for the end of season 1 of the Flipped Experiment, but I think it's going to get more chaotic from here as those teams go up and down and teams are in Europe. Curzon, Ashton, Alfreton, Hemel Hempstead, Blyth and Bradford, these guys are all going to be playing in Europe next year. So we'll see how they get on against some of the can they even record a win? Let me know in the comments. Do you think one of these teams will even get a win in the Champions League? Are they going to spend some of that money that they now have in their pockets? Are they going to establish themselves? They got a race against time as those Premier League teams start to move back up the divisions. There's a little bit of a block there down in the National League Conference with only 2 teams getting promoted into League 2, but they're on their way, those Premier League teams. let's see how they do next season. So I hope you're enjoying this content. Make sure you give it a like if you do, and subscribe down below. And also over on the TikTok, I'm bringing some little bit extras from this save, some little quick updates as we go. So make sure you come over and check it out there. If anyone wants me to look at a club, I can look at the transfers, the finances, anything like that. There's not so much change after this first season. After season 2 and season 3, it's going to start to get a bit more crazy. So I'm really looking forward to sharing that with you then. In the meantime, why don't you come out and check out some of my other videos. For example, this video right here, which is an England experiment where I put England into the Premier League.